Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Tanner's Favorite Things. This is actually the first of, I don't know how many pieces, but it will be a multi-piece series where we focus only on bass. And I know that we talk a lot about guitar, a lot about drums, and I got a new keyboard recently, or digital audio workstation, the Juno DS88. So a lot of these things kind of take center focus, and sometimes that leaves the humble old bass to sit in the back and root everything together. And you know, I think that that's a terrible attitude to have. I think the bass should get its spotlight. And in fact, it was the very first instrument that I purchased with my own money was an electric bass. And it is in fact this one right here. This is not the topic of this episode. This is just kind of a side story. But I just wanted to illustrate the fact that I did spend my own money and time on a bass instrument in my teen years, and I feel so bad that I didn't progress beyond the level that I did. And I sucked pretty bad for a long time, and I still suck pretty bad from pretty much most metrics, but still I love playing the bass and it feels right to me. I love the long scale, the skinny neck, the big old frets. This is the 90s bass. So I purchased this in, I think, 97. It says S7, so I think that serial number kind of corroborates that 97 number. But either way, this was not that expensive of an instrument when I purchased it, maybe $400 back in the 90s. But, you know, in today's money, that's more money than most people spend on instruments. So I encourage you to buy an instrument for your child now, and then later on, whether they play it or not, they may still have fond memories of it. So we're going to talk about bass, and this is not the bass that we're going to focus on today, but I may play it today just for kicks. Really, what I want to focus on is this bass amplifier, and there's a very specific reason that has to do with this package right here. No spoilers, but wonder what could be in that package. So this bass amp is one that I acquired kind of through my family. My cousin, Jason, love rocking with you. Hope that we can get together and jam again soon. My cousin Jason purchased this bass amp, and he also had a orange, one of those dark 30s or dark terrors, one of the kind of real loud little orange amps into a 4x12. And this amp just didn't keep up with it in his space. So he was like, screw this amp, I'm going big. He went with a tube amp for his bass, a Trace Elliott, and this one got sent down the river. And lo and behold, it fits right in with my space. You know, it might be a little undergunned as compared to the wall of sound that's to my right here. And this actually is probably a unique perspective for you that you don't see very often if you watch this channel. I'm typically pointed in that direction, to directly left of where you're sitting, and that's the amps and the cabinets, and in this direction is the bass setup and the PA and drum set access. So anyway, this bass amp is 100 watts. It's a Fender Rumble 100. First of all, let's get that out in the open. Fender bass amplification nameplate on the front, Rumble 100, and it's a very basic yet semi-versatile solid state bass amp, and it's been very useful and kept up for my needs up until pretty much this moment. And what you see is what you get. You have volume, a 3-band EQ with a treble, and there's this RCA CD in, which I have never played with myself, but I assume if you want to plug your CD player into this amplifier and play along, that's how you would do it. And I don't know any of the technology, but this feels like a late 90s, early to mid 2000s amplifier. I don't know exactly, but if that's the case, the CD was still reigning supreme, and that would make sense. Next we have an effects loop, send and return, preamp out, power amp in, and then a headphones 1/4-inch jack, nice if you want to just play through your headphones, as well as a line level, which you're going to hear today. We're going to actually go ahead and hear the speaker and the line level and compare the two as well. And whatever this is here, ground lift, I don't know, some sort of ground, electric ground. So the last thing is the power switch, And that's it. So it's a fully enclosed cabinet. It's this fuzzy material, which a lot of people are not crazy about. But you know who really is crazy about it? Is my cat Smokey. And he loves chewing up the side. Maybe I'll get a close-up of that. Maybe I'll hide it from view. I don't know. It's pretty bad. But the cat loves this material. So if you have a cat and you want this amplifier to exist in your studio cat level, I don't know, dicey. So one 15-inch speaker, and I can't remember the exact model of speaker that this one came with. I think it was a Fender branded, no name, just zinced back, small magnet 15-inch speaker. I sold that one because, you know, obviously you need to replace the speaker in your amp. That's not true, but I love to. And I went with a Celestion 1503 initially, but that has been kind of repositioned into another cabinet, which you also may be seeing very soon. No spoilers. So instead of that Celestion 1503, I went with an Eminence, just big old 15-inch speaker. I can't remember the exact model, but it's one of their kind of powerhouse speakers for 15-inch bass amplification. And I believe it's a 200-watt speaker. So with a 100-watt amp, solid state, it's got plenty of juice in reserve. So this thing gets really, really loud. That's one thing I can say about it, and I'll go ahead and demonstrate that here in a second. But before I do, I wanted to get kind of the amplifier described and basically get you up to date and up to speed on what it is and what it has. So our recording today, we're going to take advantage of that line in. We have that, what it's called, or sorry, line out rather, and it's just a regular XLR. That's going to go right into track number 6 on my Focusrite Scarlett 18920 audio interface. So that's occupying one track. We also have an SM58 right on the cone of this 15-inch beast of a speaker, and that's just regular XLR plugged into track number 1 on that same Focusrite audio interface. So that's what's going to be capturing the sound today. My voice is being captured by my Sennheiser AVX wireless microphone system. Really great option for lapel microphone sound capturing. So we're going to go ahead and cut out my vocal microphone when the bass is playing. So I'll do that in post, but just understand that we're going to have both of these, and I'll kind of tell you when I'm going to focus on one versus the other. But for the most part, we're going to just listen to it mixed so we can get a just general sound of what this amplifier is capable of, what it sounds like, and play a few basses through it. So speaking of basses, like I said, this Washburn is an active bass. Active meaning that it has a 9-volt preamp on it, so that, you know, produces different sounds than a non-active or passive bass, or bass with passive pickups. Speaking of, we have the bottom of the barrel. So we're going to start with cheap and dirty, or down and dirty, whatever you want to call this style of bass. But this is a Peavey Peavey Milestone 2 from the International Edition. And this is probably a $250 to $300 bass if you were to go buy this brand new. And I gotta say that it plays way better than its price range, and way better than you would expect for this type of bass. So we're gonna plug this one in. This one has no electronics other than the passive electronics you would find on a Fender P bass. So we have the standard P bass 4-string layout, volume, tone, pretty simple. It's some sort of cheapo tone wood, I would imagine basswood, with a maple neck and, you know, 4 international style bass tuners, but they look pretty burly. So it feels solid and it thumps. This is a pretty cool bass for a cheapo international Peavey bass. So speaking of Peavey, we're going to stick with the Peavey realm. I have a Peavey, this is an Accelerator Plus bass from 1994, I want to say. And this is a gem that I picked up, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And this has been one of my favorite basses. 4 strings. The gold is what some might call gaudy. Gabby hates it. I like it. I think it looks good. But this is a 90s bass if there ever was one. Also, active electronics. We have the 9 volt, sorry, not 9 volt, 18 volt. There are 2 9 volt batteries stuffed in this package here. So this is an 18 volt preamp, which these are Peavey branded pickups, and they're hot, and there's a lot of different sounds you can get with this bass. And then finally, we're gonna go up the scale of cost, and some might say quality, but this is an actual Fender USA Precision V bass, not the P bass. It's the V because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strings. Basically a P bass, precision bass, in a 5-string package. You can see that neck is wide and slim, so it's pretty fast, but it's heavy, it's chunky, it's got a lot of girth, and it has its very own tonal palette and sounds, and I really like this bass. This is typically, I go between this and this, but I love both of these basses, and this one is a fun little project. My oldest bass, my Washburn, is also fun when the electronics don't crap out. So let's go ahead and hear what these things sound like with this amplifier and this speaker. Let's start with our Peavey Milestone 2 International Series bass. This is a satin, real satiny feeling finish, so it's not what you'd call glossy. It will be if you play it over time, but right now it's satin, so it's got that kind of not so smooth feel. But this is what it sounds like. We have our volume at 50, basically, or 5, and our bass in the middle, treble, or low mids in the middle. High mids, we got kind of cranked up a little bit, and then treble right in the middle, and it sounds. So a really nice sounding amplifier with, you know, this bass and a lot of others. I rolled the tone down, but it can get pretty snarly if you leave that tone wide open with the volume all the way. A really nice sounding bass, very low price point, but very high value. And the amplifier, I think, adds some character to this bass, if you will. So a really nice sounding amplifier. All right, here we are with this 90s Peavey bass. Again, it is the Accelerator Plus with the gold hardware and the tortoiseshell pickguard. I really like. So the deal with this bass is it has that 18 volt preamp, and this dial here is pretty much responsible for winding in how much aggressiveness you want. And right now, I have it pretty maxed. So let me wind this down Without the preamp. And then we have basically a bass and like a treble dial. Let me wind the closest one down here. Peaking the microphone, it looks like, I can't tell which track is which at this point, but it's peaking a little bit, especially when I get on it and hammer that. So I find that to be a little offensive. I wind it back a little bit on both of them just to kind of be somewhere in the middle typically. Might be a little close to the frets here. Get a little buzz if I get a little aggressive. If I play it like a gentleman, then it doesn't buzz at all. So there you go, this bass with active electronics. It's got a lot of variety of sounds. I like it with the actives pretty much 75% on both. Volume all the way up, tone all the way open. Then you can solo, you can lay down some thumpy grooves, you can just kind of... really aggressive sounding without putting much effort into the strings and to the pickups. So there you go, active electronics on a 90s bass. This thing is made from metal. Go figure. So let's go ahead and go back to the world of passive electronics, but add a fifth string and a whole lot of cash with the Fender V bass. All right, so here we are with the Fender Precision V bass, and it is a precision bass. Precision V though, because of the 5 strings, and you can see it has a low. And I'll be honest, I don't use that low B string all that often, but I think if you do play like the djenty style of down-tuned metal, then this is kind of right where you need to be, because it just... Again, it's, you know, a little close for that style of playing, but if you play it like a normal person, then it plays just like a normal bass, and it, like I said, is passive. Volume and tone all the way open. If I wind it back on the tone, it sounds... So this is a really thumpy bass, I want to say, just kind of out of the box. And with that tone wound all the way open, it's still pretty growly and thumpy. attribute that to the extra wood on the neck, the extra wood that it takes to bolt this thing on there, and just the heavier string tension that's put on that neck, because with that extra B string, that's putting a hell of a lot more tension on that neck than just 4 strings. You're basically adding 25% more tension. I'm not exactly sure of the math there based on the register of the string, but either way, you're putting more tension on that neck. You need more weight, more beef, more girth. It's just a frickin' man's beast of a bass, and I always respect people that can wield this thing in a lithe way. So there you go. This bass is very versatile though, and Fender with Fender is a killer combination for most music. Again, I think it falls short of that real djenty metal, but you could really do some damage with some melodic metal and just have some thumpy ass bass in the context of a groove or something slower and darker or deeper, and you can go all the way down to that B string. Cool, right? So this is a really cool bass and one of my favorites. I got it for a steal, and I don't even want to tell you how much I paid for it, but it has definitely appreciated so much more. And I think that it was probably due to the fact that the 5-string is a bit unwieldy, and it can get in the way if you're a 4-string player and that's all you know and that's all you want to know, because you think that low B is your low E string and it just knocks you down a 4th, and that's not where you want to be in most cases. So this is a special bass with 5 strings. It has special attributes and sounds as a result, and it's fun to play. And it sounds really great with this Fender Rumble 100 amp. So let's go play a little bit up on. Thumpy. So that's kind of a sampling of what this bass amp sounds like, what it can do, and how it performs. Let's go ahead and just mess with these knobs a little bit, and then we will swap between the line out and the microphone and just give you a little bit of tonal variety there. So here's just some messing around with the dials. I'll add more bass all the way. That's just too buzzy. I leave it right smack dab in the middle, and there's actually a little indexed notch that locks you in, and it sounds like this. Perfect. Low mid. Let's go up. So I think that all the way up is a little noisy. Just rattles the hell out of the snare more than anything. So that's kind of cool without any of the low mids, but again, I kind of like it right in the middle. Let's wind that even down a little bit. I'm kind of liking that lower low mids. And the high mid, it's actually 4-band IQ. I guess the treble is counting as the highest, so low and high mids. This is the high. These are also flat wound strings on this thing, which to me, make all the difference. I love flat wound strings, and no, and yes. So the Washburn has them. We'll pull that out for the final test. But just skew it a little treble heavy with this amp and this bass. I think that makes the best sound, and that typically translates across instruments. But that's what you can get by messing with the dials. Let's go ahead and swap basses once again and see what the line out versus the standard SM58 on the speaker sounds like. All right, it's always a crapshoot when turning on this bass, whether it's going to crackle and make any sound. All right, so here we are with this Washburn 90s active bass. It's all the way up. It sounds like this. Rich and mellow and groovy and fun. So I love this bass when it's working. It's working great now, so I'm going to keep going. And let's go ahead and take out the microphone in here with just the line out sounds like. So I'm going to play a riff or a groove. I don't know what I'm going to play yet. It's always a mystery at this point. But I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to play it back twice. So you hear the exact same thing. I'm going to not alter anything other than what is capturing the sound, whether it's the direct line out that's going directly into the Focusrite versus a microphone positioned in front of the speaker, which is the traditional method for capturing sound from a cabinet. So let's go ahead and see what we can do. All right, so I'll go ahead and play that back for you. This time we'll listen with just the SM58. And for kicks, let's just go ahead and hear it with both of them combined. Here is that. So the Fender Rumble 100 bass amplifier is really one of my favorite rock steady pieces of kit that I've relied on for the past 5 or 6 years now, I guess, is how long I've had this amp. And it's made a move with me, and it has really stood up the test of time. So Fender products in the 90s, I think you can say that they were pretty rock solid, as well as the historical Fenders of, you know, the 60s and 50s. So 90s Fenders, really great. 90s Washburn, surprisingly good. 90s Peavey, always great. I don't know exactly when this Milestone Peavey was made. I assume it's kind of the mid to 2010s, 2000s to 2010s. Not sure. This one I think is a 2007. Let's see if I can discern that. No, sorry, it's a 2010. So you have a smattering of ages with these basses, different electronics, different tone woods. Well, maybe not different tone woods. I think this is probably basswood, this Washburn, because this is a made in Japan style guitar. A really nice bass, but it is not kind of the equivalent of the US made basses of the 90s, I would say. But either way, really quality, fine sounding, playing and feeling bass. And again, that's not what we're talking about. I can get sucked into this thing, and we'll have a video on this at some point when I fix the electronics for good. But I do want to give a shout out to the Fender Rumble 100 amplifier one last time. And you know, you may have heard it quite a bit if you've listened to a lot of the music that you hear on this channel. Anytime there's a bass in the mix, chances are it was played through this amplifier, and it's really been a great piece of kit. And I'm gonna shed a tear, I'm gonna miss it, because there may be something coming down the pike. Stay tuned. So in the meantime, if you like this style of content, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments or things that you would like to see specifically on this channel, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know, and I'll try to put something together. So once again, this has been Tanner's Favorite Things, and if you like and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks, and I hope to see you on the next one.